The alarm screamed through the council chambers for the first time in 200 years. Director Vexthor's 3 eyes widened as he stared at the impossible readings on his display screen. The barrier around the Sol system was breaching. Not cracking or failing, but being deliberately opened from the inside. "This cannot be real," Vexthor said, his voice shaking. "Run the scan again." The technician, a young Krell named Zinara, worked her controls with trembling fingers. "Director, I have run it 17 times. The signal is authentic. Something is coming through the quarantine barrier." Around the circular chamber, council members from 40 different species rose from their seats. Voices filled the air, some angry, others terrified. The Sol quarantine had been in place for 2 centuries. Nothing was supposed to survive inside. Certainly nothing was supposed to come out. "Silence," Vexthor commanded. The room fell quiet. "What exactly are we detecting?" Zinara pulled up the data for everyone to see. 3 ships, Director. They match no known design in our database. They are holding position just outside the barrier, as if waiting for permission to proceed. "Ships?" Council member Terval stood, his massive frame casting shadows across the floor. The humans had barely achieved basic spaceflight when we sealed them in. How could they build ships capable of breaching a quantum barrier? No one had an answer. The barrier around Sol had been designed to last 10,000 years. It was meant to contain the damage from humanity's reckless experiments with void drive technology. The humans had torn a hole in normal space, creating what the Council believed was a growing catastrophe that would consume their entire system. The Council had acted quickly, sealing off the Sol system to protect the rest of the galaxy. Everyone assumed the humans would die within a few generations. The barrier blocked all travel in and out. No supplies, no rescue, no escape. Should we destroy them? Taurek asked. The military commander's hand moved toward his weapon controls. They were quarantined for a reason. Whatever comes out of that zone is contaminated. Wait, Vexthor said. He had been director for 50 years, but he remembered the old stories from before his time. The decision to quarantine humanity had not been unanimous. Some council members had argued for helping the humans fix their mistake instead of abandoning them. Those voices had been ignored. Let us see what they want. Open a communication channel. The main screen flickered to life. A human face appeared, and several council members gasped. The human looked normal, healthy, even. He wore a dark uniform with insignia that meant nothing to the council. His eyes were calm, almost too calm for someone emerging from a 200-year death sentence. "Greetings, Galactic Council," the human said. His voice was steady and clear. "My name is Kyle Morrison. I am an ambassador from the Human Federation. We request permission to address the Council." "Human Federation?" Vexthor repeated. "You mean the survivors of Earth?" "Earth and much more," Kyle replied. "We have a great deal to discuss, Director Vexthor. May we come aboard?" The council chamber erupted again. Half the members shouted to destroy the ships immediately. The other half demanded answers. Vexthor raised his hand for silence, but it took several minutes for order to return. "How do you know my name?" Vexthor asked. "How do you even know our language?" "You have been isolated for 2 centuries. Kyle smiled slightly. "We have had a long time to learn, Director. And we have been listening to your broadcasts for the past 5 years. But these are not conversations to have over an open channel. Grant us safe passage, and we will explain everything." 5 years. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. If the humans had been monitoring council communications for 5 years, that meant they had broken through the barrier long ago. They had been watching, listening, waiting. The realization sent cold fear through Vexthor's body. "Why did you wait?" Zinara asked, speaking before she could stop herself. "If you could leave 5 years ago, Why contact us now? Kyle's expression grew serious. Because we wanted to be sure we were making the right choice. We needed time to understand what kind of galaxy we were emerging into. And we needed to decide what kind of species we wanted to be. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Vexter had lived long enough to recognize a threat wrapped in politeness. The humans had spent 5 years studying the Council while remaining hidden. They knew everything about the galaxy's current state. The Council knew nothing about them. I will grant you temporary diplomatic immunity, Vexter said finally. You and one other may board this station. Your ships will remain at a distance. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction. Understood, Kyle said. I will bring Commander Lisa Garrett as my escort. We will be unarmed. Transmitting our approach vector now. The screen went dark. Vexter sat back in his chair, feeling every one of his 70 years of age. Around him, council members argued about the decision. Talrek was furious, demanding the humans be destroyed before they could speak. Others were curious, wanting to know how any species could survive inside a quantum barrier. Vexter ignored them all. He was thinking about the quarantine, about the decision made 200 years ago. The official records said it was necessary to protect the galaxy from humanity's dangerous experiments. But Vexter had access to the sealed files, the ones that told a different story. The humans had not created a catastrophe. They had discovered something the Council wanted buried. Their void drive technology worked differently than anything the Council possessed. It threatened the Council's control over space travel. The barrier had not been built to contain a disaster. It had been built to contain a rival, and now that rival had returned. 2 hours later, Kyle Morrison and Lisa Garrett walked into the Council chambers. They wore simple uniforms and carried no visible weapons. Kyle moved with the confidence of someone who had nothing to fear. Lisa, younger and clearly military-trained, kept her eyes moving, assessing every exit and threat. The chamber fell silent as the two humans took their position in the center of the circular room. 40 species stared down at them from elevated seats. It should have been intimidating. Instead, Kyle looked almost amused. Thank you for seeing us, Kyle said. We have come a long way to have this conversation. Start talking, Talrek growled. Explain how you survived and why we should not send you back into quarantine. Kyle met the military commander's gaze without flinching. We survived because you left us no choice. We adapted because adaptation was the only path forward. And as for sending us back? He paused, and for the first time, his calm expression shifted to something harder. That option no longer exists, Commander. The Sol system is no longer in quarantine. It is no longer isolated. And humanity is no longer yours to contain. The chamber exploded with noise. Council members shouted. Alarms began to sound. Security forces moved toward the humans, but Kyle and Lisa did not move. They stood perfectly still, waiting for the chaos to subside. Vexter watched them carefully. Two humans, surrounded by the combined might of 40 species, looked completely unconcerned. Either they were fools or they knew something the Council did not. He suspected it was the latter. Everyone calm down, Vexter commanded. Ambassador Morrison, you will explain exactly what happened inside the quarantine zone. You will explain how you survived, how you breached the barrier, and what you want from this Council. And you will do it now. Kyle nodded slowly. Of course, Director. But I warn you, the truth is going to change everything you think you know about humanity. The species you sealed away 200 years ago no longer exists. What we became in that darkness is something far different, and far more dangerous than you ever imagined. Kyle Morrison took a slow breath before he began. The council chambers were dead silent now, every eye fixed on him. Even the most hostile members had stopped their shouting, waiting to hear what could possibly explain the impossible. 200 years ago, humanity made first contact with your probe, Kyle said. We were excited. We thought we had found friends in the universe. Instead, you studied us like insects and left without a word. We did not understand why. Vexter shifted in his seat but said nothing. The human was right. The council had observed humanity for exactly 47 days before departing. The official report had concluded humans were too aggressive and too curious to be trusted with advanced technology. We continued our research, Kyle continued. A scientist named Dr. Amanda Chun led a team working on void drive propulsion. It was different from your jump drives. Instead of folding space, we learned to slip between the layers of reality. We called it subspace. We know this, Talrek interrupted. Your experiments tore a hole in normal space. You created a growing wound that would have consumed your entire system. Kyle's expression hardened. That is what you told yourselves. That is the lie you used to justify what you did. But Amanda's team knew the truth. The phenomenon we created was not a tear. It was a doorway. A stable passage into a dimension beneath our own. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Zinara worked her controls frantically, pulling up old data from the quarantine decision. Her face went pale as she read. The void drive worked, Kyle said. It worked perfectly. Our ships could travel through subspace faster than anything you possessed. We were about to revolutionize space travel. And that terrified you. Lies, Terval roared. We sealed your system to protect the galaxy. You sealed our system to protect your power, Lisa Garrett spoke for the first time, her voice cold. You saw we had developed technology that would break your monopoly on interstellar travel. So you manufactured a crisis and trapped us. Kyle raised a hand, and Lisa fell silent. But arguing about the past serves no purpose. What matters is what happened next. 3 days after you erected the barrier, we detected it. The entire Sol system was cut off from the rest of the universe. No way in, no way out. And our subspace doorway, our greatest achievement, was now trapped inside with us. He paused, and his voice grew quieter. There were 7 billion humans alive when the barrier went up. Our leadership called emergency sessions. Scientists tried to understand the barrier. Military forces prepared for a war we could not fight. And slowly, we realized the horrible truth. You had left us to die. The council chamber remained silent. Even the humans' harshest critics could not speak. There was something in Kyle's voice, a darkness that spoke of unimaginable loss. The first year was chaos, Kyle said. Panic spread across Earth. People rioted. Governments collapsed. Many chose to end their lives rather than wait for slow starvation. Our population dropped to 6 billion in 12 months. He began walking slowly around the center of the chamber as he spoke, forcing council members to turn and track his movement. But something happened in that second year. Dr. Amanda Chen, who had spent months blaming herself for humanity's fate, made a discovery. The subspace doorway we had created was not just stable. It was growing. And it was not dangerous. The readings you detected were not signs of destruction. They were signs of creation. Zinara looked up from her display. That is impossible. Subspace is a void. Nothing can exist there. Nothing from your understanding of physics, Lisa said. But Earth is different. Our planet has a unique magnetic field, stronger and more complex than most worlds. When we opened that doorway, our magnetic field interacted with subspace in ways no one predicted. Kyle nodded. Amanda theorized that humans, evolved under Earth's magnetic influence, might be able to perceive and navigate subspace. It sounded crazy, but we were facing extinction anyway. What did we have to lose? He stopped walking and faced Vexter directly. So we tried. Amanda and her team built a small probe and sent it through the doorway. It did not dissolve. It did not disappear. The sensors showed a vast space, empty but stable. A dimension where our ships could move faster than light without using your jump gates. A volunteer named Captain Brandon Cole took the first crewed mission into subspace. He was inside for 6 hours. When he returned, he reported seeing things, feeling things. He said subspace had currents, like an ocean. He said he could sense them, almost touch them with his mind. The implications were staggering. If humans could navigate subspace naturally, they would not need the Council's jump gates. They would not need permission to travel. They would be independent. We sent more missions, Kyle continued. Each one went deeper, stayed longer. And we discovered something remarkable. Humans exposed to subspace began to change. Not physically at first, but mentally. We developed new senses. We could feel the currents Brandon described. We could perceive dimensional boundaries. Genetic mutation, Terval said. You poisoned yourselves. Evolution, Kyle corrected. Natural selection accelerated by necessity. A scientist named Dr. Nathan Cross studied the changes. He found that human DNA was more flexible than most species. Our ancestors survived ice ages, plagues, and countless disasters by adapting quickly. Subspace just gave us a new pressure to adapt to. Lisa stepped forward. I am third generation, Council Member Terval. I was born 80 years after the quarantine began. I have never seen the sky of original Earth. I was born in a habitat built inside a stable subspace pocket, surrounded by dimensions most species cannot perceive. And I am far from unique. Millions of humans like me exist now. The council members stared at her with a mixture of horror and fascination. She looked completely human, but if her words were true, she was something else entirely. We did not just survive the quarantine, Kyle said. We thrived. The barrier you built to contain us became our shield while we grew strong. We built cities in subspace, expanding our territory across multiple dimensional layers. We learned to travel between them as easily as you cross a room. He pulled up a hologram from a device on his wrist. Images appeared in the air, showing vast structures existing in impossible spaces. Cities built on platforms suspended in nothing. Ships moving through layers of reality. Children playing in parks that existed in 2 dimensions at once. Our population did not die off, Kyle said. We number 23 billion now. We have settlements across 7-dimensional layers, all connected to the Sol system. We have resources you cannot imagine and technology built specifically for subspace environments. Vexter felt his stomach turn. The Council had not contained humanity. They had given humanity 200 years to evolve beyond anything the galaxy had seen. When did you breach the barrier? Vexter asked. 5 years ago, Kyle said. A pilot named Ashley Pierce volunteered to test our theories. She was 4th generation, born with stronger subspace senses than anyone before her. She took a small ship and dove deeper into subspace than anyone had gone. She found the barriers you built exist only in normal space. In subspace, they are just shadows. Ashley slipped around your barrier like walking through a doorway. She entered normal space beyond the quarantine zone and returned to tell us the galaxy was still there. Still functioning. Still controlled by the Council that had abandoned us to die. The weight of his words settled over the chamber like a blanket. The humans had been free for 5 years. They could have attacked at any time. They could have taken revenge on the Council that had imprisoned them. Why did you wait? Zinara asked again. Why spend 5 years watching us before making contact? Kyle's expression softened slightly. Because we had to decide who we wanted to be. We had a debate that lasted years. Some of our people wanted revenge. They argued that you tried to destroy us and deserved to face the same fate. They wanted to use our technology to conquer the council space, to make you feel the fear we felt. Others argued we should stay hidden. Let you believe we died. Build our civilization in subspace and never interact with you again. Why risk contact with species that had already proven they would abandon us? He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many council members as he could. But a third group, led by Admiral Connor Shaw, argued for a different path. They said humanity's greatest strength was not our technology or our new abilities. It was our choice. We could choose to be better than those who wronged us. We could choose to seek understanding instead of revenge. That debate took 5 years to resolve, Lisa added. We are not a unified government like the council. We are a federation of settlements and stations, each with their own voice. Every vote mattered. Every opinion was heard. In the end, Admiral Shaw's position won by the smallest margin. Kyle nodded. We chose to come here in peace, to seek dialogue instead of war, to offer the council a chance to acknowledge what was done and work toward a better future. But make no mistake, his voice hardened again. We come from a position of strength, not weakness. We do not ask for your permission to exist. We are here to tell you that humanity has returned to the galactic stage, and things are going to change. Vexter absorbed the words carefully. The humans had chosen peace, but only barely. If the council responded poorly, that choice could be reversed. And if humanity truly had the capabilities... Kyle Morrison watched the council members carefully as he prepared to reveal what humanity had learned. Some looked curious. Others appeared nervous. Vexter's expression was unreadable, but his 3 eyes had gone very still. The way a predator freezes before deciding whether to fight or flee. During our isolation, we mapped every centimeter of subspace around the Sol system, Kyle began. We had to. Our survival depended on understanding the space we lived in. And subspace is strange. Distances work differently there. Areas that seem far apart in normal space can be very close in subspace. He pulled up another hologram, showing a map of local space with glowing markers scattered across it. We found 3 other quantum barriers similar to the one around. So, 3 other quarantine zones within what you would consider reasonable travel distance. We were curious. If the council had quarantined humanity, had they done the same to others? Zinara started working her console frantically. Other council members leaned forward, some trying to appear confused. Others clearly recognizing what Kyle was describing. The first zone we found was around a system you designated as Kepler 442. Kyle continued. According to our database searches through your communication networks, a species called the Vrin lived there approximately 400 years ago. They were brilliant mathematicians who developed a new form of quantum computing. Very advanced, very dangerous to the established order. Terval stood abruptly. The Vrin died from a plague, a natural disaster. We had nothing to do with it. Interesting, Lisa said, because when we sent drones into their quarantine zone, we found the plague. Still active, still spreading, still programmed to target Vrin genetic markers specifically. Plagues do not program themselves. Council member Terval. The chamber erupted in shouts and denials. Kyle waited patiently for the noise to die down before continuing. The second zone contained the remains of the Vex civilization. They lived in a water world and developed biological ships, vessels grown from living tissue that could repair themselves and evolve. The council records claim they destroyed themselves in a civil war. But we found evidence of weapons fire that could only come from council military vessels. The war was not internal. It was an invasion. Vexter closed his eyes. The truth was coming out faster than he could control it. Around him, younger council members who had not known the full history were demanding answers from their elders. The third zone was the most recent, Kyle said quietly. Only 150 years old. A species called the Meridians. They were peaceful explorers who discovered a method of communication that worked faster than light without any technology. Pure thought transmission across vast distances. Can you imagine how that would threaten a council that controls all communication networks? He paused, letting the implications sink in. The Meridians did not die from plague or war. Their zone simply has no life signs anymore. They were there one day and gone the next. Complete extinction in a matter of weeks. We are still trying to understand what weapon could cause that. These are conspiracy theories, Talrek shouted. Lies designed to turn the council against itself. Are they? Kyle pulled up detailed images, scans, data readings. We can provide all the evidence you want. Ship logs, weapon signatures, communication intercepts. We spent 5 years gathering this information before approaching you. We wanted to be absolutely sure of our facts. Lisa took over the presentation. The pattern is clear. Every 50 to 100 years, a new species develops technology that threatens the Council's control. Sometimes it is faster communication. Sometimes it is independent space travel. Sometimes it is weapons or defenses. Whatever the innovation, the Council's response is the same. Quarantine, isolation, extinction. You created a system where no one can rise to challenge you, Kyle said. Any species that shows potential is cut off and left to die. You call it protection. We call it murder. Severin, a younger council member from the Dax species, stood up. Her voice was shaking. Director Vexter, is this true? Does the council have a policy of eliminating potential rivals? Vexter was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with age and regret. It is more complicated than Ambassador Morrison makes it sound. The council was formed 3,000 years ago to bring order to a chaotic galaxy. In those early days, species fought constantly. Billions died in wars over resources and territory. The founders created a system to prevent such conflicts. Part of that system, he continued, was ensuring no single species could dominate others through superior technology. Yes, we monitored developing civilizations. Yes, we intervened when certain technologies appeared. But it was meant to maintain balance and prevent wars. By committing genocide, Kyle said flatly. Call it what it is, Director. You murdered entire species to maintain your power. We made difficult choices to preserve peace, Vexter replied. Do you think it was easy? Do you think we enjoyed watching civilizations fall? We did what we believed was necessary to protect the greater good. The greater good, Lisa repeated, her voice bitter. My great-grandmother died never knowing the sky above her birth planet. She spent her entire life in subspace habitats, living in dimensions that should not exist. Because your council decided humanity was too dangerous to survive. Tell me how that served the greater good. Kyle placed a hand on Lisa's shoulder, calming her. The council's original intentions do not matter anymore, Director. What matters is that the system is broken. It has become exactly what it was meant to prevent, a tyranny maintained through fear and violence. And it ends now. You cannot end 3,000 years of galactic order, Talrek said. You are one species. We are 40. Your technology may be advanced, but you are outnumbered. Are we? Kyle asked. He pulled up a new image. It showed space around the council chambers, where 3 human ships had been waiting. Except now there were not 3 ships. There were dozens, hundreds. They had appeared silently while the council was distracted by Kyle's revelations. Admiral Connor Shaw sends his regards. He thought you might need a visual reminder of humanity's capabilities. The council members rushed to their own displays, confirming what they were seeing. Human ships surrounded the station. They had not been detected until Kyle chose to reveal them. If they had wanted to attack, the Council would have had no warning. How? Zenara whispered. Our sensors should have detected them. Subspace travel? Lisa explained. We can move between dimensions at will. Your sensors only watch normal space. By the time you detect us, we have already been watching you for hours. Or days, or weeks. Vexter felt control of the situation slipping away. The humans had outmaneuvered them completely. They had superior technology, superior intelligence, and moral authority. Worst of all, they had the truth. What do you want from us? Severin asked. If you came to destroy the Council, you would have done it already. You want something else. Kyle nodded, pleased that someone was asking the right questions. We want reform. The Council needs to change or be replaced. We want democratic representation for all species, not just the 40 who got here first. We want transparency. No more secret quarantines. No more hidden assassinations. If a species develops dangerous technology, the galaxy works together to help them use it safely, not murder them in the dark. Impossible, Terval said. The Council has maintained order for 3 millennia. You cannot simply change everything. We are not asking permission, Kyle said. We are telling you what is going to happen. Humanity survived your attempt to destroy us. We evolved beyond your ability to control us. And now we are going to share what we learned with every other species in this galaxy. Free subspace travel. Free communication. Free access to technology. The monopolies that keep the Council in power are over. Tolrek reached for his weapon control. This is a declaration of war. Before he could activate anything, Lisa moved. She crossed the distance between them faster than anyone thought possible, her hand closing over his controls. She had not drawn a weapon. She did not need to. Her enhanced reflexes, developed through generations of evolution in subspace, made her faster than any normal being. Please do not, Lisa said quietly. We did not come here to fight. But if you insist on violence, you will lose. Your weapons are slower than our ships. Your strategies are built for normal space combat. You have never faced an enemy that can attack from dimensions you cannot perceive. Do not make us demonstrate. She released Tolrek and stepped back. The military commander stood frozen, shocked by how easily she had disarmed him. We are not your enemy, Kyle said into the stunned silence. We could have been. After what you did to us, after 200 years of abandonment and lies, we had every right to seek revenge. But we chose a different path. We chose to believe that the galaxy could be better than what you made it. We chose to give you a chance. He looked at each council member in turn. But this is your only chance. You can work with us to build a new system, one based on cooperation instead of domination. Or you can resist, and we will build it without you. Either way, the galaxy is changing. Today. Now. Because of us. Severin stood again. I support Ambassador Morrison's proposal. The Council has existed too long without oversight. We need reform. Other younger Council members began nodding. The Council chambers descended into chaos as the session ended. Half the members demanded immediate action against the humans. The other half called for calm and negotiation. Security forces filled the corridors, unsure whether to prepare for combat or stand down. In the middle of it all, Kyle Morrison and Lisa Garrett waited with the patience of people who knew they held all the advantages. Vexter called for a private meeting with his inner circle in a secure room deep within the station. Only the oldest and most trusted council members attended. Tolrek was there, still angry from his encounter with Lisa. Tarvel sat heavily in his seat, looking older than his years. Zenara had been invited as well, her technical expertise needed for what was coming. Tell me our options, Vexter said without preamble. Can we fight them? Talrek pulled up tactical displays. Their ships surround us. One count 340 vessels, all of unknown design. They appeared without warning, which means they can strike anywhere without us detecting them first. But numbers and surprise are not everything. We have 40 species worth of military forces. If we mobilize the full fleet, we outnumber them 1,000 to 1. Can your forces fight in subspace? Zinara asked quietly. The military commander's expression darkened. No, our ships are designed for normal space combat. If the humans can truly move between dimensions, then traditional tactics will not work. They could attack from angles we cannot defend. They could retreat into subspace before we can return fire. It would be like fighting an enemy who can turn invisible at will. So we cannot win a military confrontation, Vexter said. What about the barrier? Can we simply seal them back in their system? Zinara shook her head. Director, the barrier technology only works when building from the outside. We surrounded their system and collapsed quantum fields inward. But now they are already outside. To trap them again, we would need to surround all of Council space and seal ourselves in with them. The energy requirements would bankrupt every species here. Taval spoke up, his voice tired. Perhaps we should consider their demands. They ask for reform and transparency. Is that truly so terrible? The quarantine program was always meant to be temporary. Maybe it is time to acknowledge our methods have become too extreme. They killed entire species, Talrek shouted. The Vryn, the Vex, the Meridians. Those civilizations threatened galactic stability. We did what was necessary, did we? Terval challenged. Or did we become so comfortable with power that we eliminated anyone who might question us? I have reviewed the old files tonight. The Meridians were not developing weapons. They were developing telepathy. Their only crime was learning to communicate without our networks. We killed them for that. They were a threat, Talrek insisted. Any species that can hide their thoughts from us is dangerous. Listen to yourself, Terval replied. You sound like a tyrant, my guardian. When did we become so afraid of competition that murder became acceptable? Vexter raised his hand for silence. This debate will get us nowhere. The question is simple. Do we accept the humans' terms, or do we resist? Before anyone could answer, an alarm sounded throughout the station. Not the warning from earlier, but something new. An arrival signal at the main docking bay. Who authorized the landing? Vexter demanded. Zinara checked her displays. No one, Director. A ship just appeared inside the docking bay. It bypassed all our security, all our shields. It simply materialized as if it had always been there. The group rushed to a viewing screen. The docking bay cameras showed a sleek vessel, unlike anything in the Council database. Its hull seemed to shimmer, existing in multiple dimensions at once. Soldiers surrounded it with weapons raised, but the ship made no hostile moves. A ramp extended and a single figure emerged. He was human, older than Kyle or Lisa, with gray hair and a calm confidence that suggested decades of command experience. He wore a uniform similar to Kyle's, but with more insignia and decorations. That must be Admiral Connor Shaw, Vexter said. The one Kyle mentioned. The leader of the peace faction. Should we capture him? Talrek asked. Use him as leverage? And prove humanity was right to be cautious? Terval countered. No, let him enter. We need to hear what he has to say. Admiral Connor Shaw walked through the station quarters with no escort, no weapons visible. Security forces tracked him, but did not interfere. He seemed to know exactly where he was going, following a path that led directly to the council chambers where Kyle and Lisa were still waiting. When he entered, Kyle stood and gave a small nod of respect. Admiral, I did not expect you to come personally. You presented our case well, Ambassador, Connor replied. But I thought it was time I saw this council for myself. Time I looked them in the eyes and decided if they were capable of change. Connor turned to face the main chamber, where council members were slowly returning to their seats. His gaze was not hostile, but it was measuring. He studied each alien species carefully, as if cataloging their strengths and weaknesses. Vexter returned to his position at the center of the council. Admiral Shaw, your arrival was unexpected and rather dramatic. I assume you have something to add to Ambassador Morrison's presentation. I do, Connor said. I want to share with you the debate we had in humanity. The arguments that took 5 years to resolve. Because I think you need to understand how close you came to a very different outcome today. He activated his own holographic display. Images appeared showing vast gatherings of humans across multiple settlements. Millions of faces in crowds, all listening to speakers. All participating in the greatest decision humanity had ever faced. When we first broke through your barrier, the immediate reaction was rage, Connor said. We had spent 2 centuries fighting to survive. We lost billions of people in the early years. Children grew up never knowing what a natural sky looked like. Families lived in constant fear that our subspace habitats would collapse and kill us all. And we knew it was your fault. You had the power to help us and chose not to. The images shifted to show angry crowds, protests, weapons being manufactured. Many of our people wanted war. They wanted revenge for every life lost, every child who died in the darkness. They wanted to make you feel the fear we felt. And we had the capability to do it. Our subspace technology gave us every advantage. We could have struck without warning, collapsed your supply lines, cut off your communications. You would never have known what hit you. Council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Connor's words were not threats. They were simple statements of fact, which made them more frightening. But others argued for isolation, Connor continued. Why risk contact at all? We had survived. We had built a new civilization. We could stay in subspace forever, hidden from your sensors, living in dimensions you could not reach. Let you believe we died. Let you forget about us. Build our own society without your interference. Both arguments were compelling, Kyle added. Both offered safety and justice in their own way. But they shared one fatal flaw. They were based on fear. Fear that you would hurt us again. Fear that we could not trust anyone outside our own species. Connor nodded. And that is when I stood before our people and said we had to choose. Not the safest path or the most satisfying path, but the right path. Because if we let fear drive us, we would become exactly what the Council had accused us of being. Dangerous, unpredictable, hostile. We would prove that sealing us away was the correct decision. He moved to stand beside the Vrin, Vex, and Meridian representatives who had arrived earlier. So I asked a different question. What if we could be better? What if we could show the galaxy that survival does not require conquest? That strength does not require cruelty? What if we could prove that species can rise from darkness and still choose light? It was not an easy argument to make, Connor admitted. Thousands spoke against me. They called me naive, foolish, weak. They said the Council would never change, never accept us. They said offering peace to those who tried to destroy us was betraying everyone who died in the quarantine. Lisa spoke up. My own mother voted against the Admiral's proposal. She argued that any species capable of genociding other civilizations was beyond redemption. She wanted to stay hidden and let the Council collapse under its own corruption. Many people I respected felt the same way. But in the end, the vote passed, Connor said. By the smallest margin possible. 50.2% in favor of peaceful contact. If even 1% more had voted differently, humanity would have remained hidden. Or worse, he let that sink in before continuing. Do you understand what this means? You are not dealing with humanity's warriors or conquerors. You are dealing with the faction that barely won an argument for mercy. Half our population still believes you deserve nothing but destruction. They are watching this meeting right now, waiting to see if their fears are confirmed. Vexter understood the implication immediately. If the Council rejected humanity's terms, it would prove the war faction had been right all along. The peace faction would lose credibility, and Connor Shaw would lose his position as humanity's voice. You are using your own internal politics as pressure, Talrek observed, threatening us with your extremists if we do not comply. I am being honest with you, Connor corrected. Yes, it creates pressure, but it is real pressure, not manufactured. The negotiations took 6 days. 6 days of arguments, compromises, and near breakdowns. Council members who had held power for centuries fought against every proposed change. Some threatened to withdraw from the Council entirely. Others attempted to form military alliances to resist humanity's demands. Through it all, Connor Shaw remained patient and firm, never backing down, but always willing to listen. On the morning of the 7th day, the final vote was called. Each of the 40 Council species would vote on whether to accept the Reform Treaty. The chamber was packed with representatives, observers, and media from across the galaxy. Everyone knew this moment would define the next era of galactic civilization. Vexter stood to address the assembly. We have debated long enough. The proposal before us is clear. Release all classified records of the quarantine program. Establish democratic representation for all species, not just council founders. End monopolies on communication and travel technology. Create independent oversight committees with representatives from emerging civilizations. And formally apologize to humanity and the other quarantined species for the crimes committed against them. He paused, looking around the chamber. These changes will fundamentally alter how we govern. Some of you will lose power. Some will lose influence. But ask yourselves, is maintaining our current system worth the cost? Worth watching the galaxy burn in war? Worth becoming the tyrants we were meant to prevent? The vote began. Species voted one by one, their decisions displayed for all to see. The tension in the room grew with each announcement. Some voted yes immediately. Others hesitated, their representatives arguing among themselves before casting their decision. Talrek's species voted no. He stood defiantly, arguing to the end that the Council should never negotiate with those who threaten it. Several military-aligned species followed his lead, but they were the minority. Tervalus species voted yes. He rose slowly, his massive frame drawing all attention. I am old, he said. I have served the Council for 90 years. I believed we were doing good. I believed our harsh measures protected the innocent. But I was wrong. The humans showed me that. Not through violence, but through their choice to be merciful when they had every right to be cruel. If they can choose to be better than their pain, then so can we. His words swayed several undecided species. One by one, more votes came in for reform. When the final tally appeared, the result was clear. 32 species voted yes. 8 voted no. The Reform Treaty had passed. Connor Shaw stood and bowed respectfully to the Council. Thank you. This is not the end of our work together, but the beginning. Humanity commits to helping build this new system. We will share our technology. We will provide resources and expertise. But most importantly, we will stand as equals alongside every species here, working together for a better future. Talrek left the chamber in anger, followed by his supporters. But most council members remained, already beginning discussions about implementation. Vexter approached Connor privately. I must ask, the director said. If we had refused, if the vote had failed, what would you have done? Connor was quiet for a moment. I do not know, Director. I truly do not. I would have returned to my people and reported the failure. After that, the decision would have been out of my hands. Perhaps we would have isolated ourselves, as some argued. Perhaps the war faction would have seized control. I am grateful we will never have to find out. Over the following weeks, the galaxy watched in amazement as the Council began implementing reforms. The classified files on the quarantine program were released, causing shock and outrage across countless worlds. Many species demanded justice for Council members who had participated in the genocides. Truth and reconciliation committees were formed. Trials were scheduled. Kyle Morrison worked with newly appointed representatives from non-Council species, helping them understand galactic politics and find their voice. Lisa Garrett trained joint military forces, teaching Council soldiers how to work alongside human subspace navigators. The Vrin, Dex, and Meridian survivors became symbols of hope. Their populations were small, but they were rebuilding with human assistance. Seeing species rise from near extinction inspired others. Dozens of civilizations that had been suppressed or ignored by the Council began to speak up, demanding recognition that not everyone accepted the changes peacefully. Talrec S species attempted to maintain the old monopolies, refusing to share gate technology. Connor responded by offering free subspace travel to any species that wanted it. Within a month, Talrec's economic leverage collapsed. His government fell, replaced by moderates willing to work with the new system. Some Council members tried to organize resistance, meeting in secret to plan ways to undermine the reforms. But human intelligence, operating through subspace surveillance that Council security could not detect, always knew about the meetings. Each plot was exposed before it could develop. After a few failed attempts, most gave up. 6 months after the vote, the Council held its first democratic election. Any species with a population over 1 million could vote for representatives to the new Galactic Assembly. Humanity was granted seats proportional to their population, but Connor insisted they take no more than that. "We are not here to dominate," he said. "We are here to participate." The election results brought in fresh voices. Young leaders from emerging species who had grown up dreaming of the stars. Scientists and philosophers who valued knowledge over power. Even a few former quarantine zone survivors who had powerful stories to share. The old Council chamber was redesigned. Instead of 40 elevated seats looking down on petitioners, there were now hundreds of seats arranged in a circle, all at the same level. No one looked down on anyone else, but not everything was perfect. Deep resentment remained among some species. Conspiracy theories spread claiming humanity had orchestrated everything to seize power. Fringe groups called for humanity to return to their quarantine. Violence erupted in isolated incidents. One day, 9 months after first contact, a signal came from a distant system. Another quarantine zone had been detected. This one was ancient, over 2,000 years old. It was listed in the oldest Council records simply as Zone 0, with no details about what species had been sealed inside. Connor called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major species gathered, including Kyle, Lisa, and Vexter, who had chosen to remain as an advisor despite his role in the old system. "We need to investigate," Connor said. "If there are survivors, they deserve rescue. If not, they deserve to be remembered properly, not left as a footnote in classified files." "I will lead the expedition," Lisa volunteered. "My ship can navigate the old barrier systems. We can be there in 2 weeks." "It could be dangerous," Vexter warned. "We do not know what is inside." The species was quarantined so long ago that even our oldest records are unclear about why. "Then we need to find out," Kyle said. "If we are building a new system based on truth and transparency, we cannot leave old secrets buried." The expedition was approved. Lisa took a mixed crew, humans and aliens working together. They departed to the coordinates of Zone Zero, eager to solve a 2,000-year-old mystery. While they traveled, Connor returned to regular duties. He met with new representatives, helped mediate disputes, and continued pushing for reforms. The work was exhausting, but satisfying. He could see the galaxy changing, slowly but surely. One evening, he sat alone in his quarters reviewing reports when Kyle entered. "Still working?" Kyle asked. "You need rest, Admiral. You are not as young as you pretend to be." Connor smiled. "Neither are you, Ambassador. But I want to finish these before Lisa returns with her report on Zone Zero. The Assembly will want answers quickly." Kyle sat across from him. "Do you ever regret it? Choosing the path we did? We could have stayed hidden, built our civilization in peace, avoided all this political mess." "Every day," Connor admitted. "Politics is harder than war. At least in war, you know who your enemies are. Here, allies can become opponents over a single vote. Compromises feel like defeats. Progress is measured in millimeters when you want kilometers." "But?" Kyle prompted. "But I look around and I see species talking to each other who never did before. I see young people from different worlds learning together. I see the Vryn children playing in parks again. And I know we made the right choice, even when it is hard." Kyle nodded. "The peace faction's numbers have grown, you know. Latest polls show 68% of humanity now supports our approach. Even some who voted against us initially have changed their minds after seeing the reforms take hold." "Good," Connor said, "because we need that support. The hard part is just beginning. Dismantling a 3,000-year-old power structure takes time. We will face more resistance, more setbacks. Our people need to understand this is a marathon, not a sprint." 2 weeks later, Lisa returned from Zone Zero. She called an emergency assembly meeting. When she entered the chamber, her expression was grave. "We found them," she announced. "The species from Zone Zero. They are alive." "Sort of." Connor leaned forward. "What do you mean, sort of?" Lisa pulled up images from her expedition. The screen showed a vast subterranean complex carved into an asteroid. Inside were thousands of beings in stasis pods. They're called the Architects. They were the galaxy's